I didn't plan on knocking at her door that evening. The rain had stopped only minutes before, leaving the street shiny and smelling of wet asphalt. My best friend had asked me to keep an eye on his sister while he was away on a work trip. He said it like a joke, but I'd heard the edge in his voice. She'd been through a lot, he said. Make sure she's okay. I told him, sure, man. No problem. I hadn't expected the weight of that promise to feel this heavy now that I was standing on her porch, hands shoved into my jacket pockets, rehearsing some easy greeting. The porch light buzzed faintly, throwing a soft halo on the door. Inside, a piano note drifted, hesitant, like someone practicing scales. When she opened the door, everything I'd been rehearsing fell away. Clara was older than my usual crowd, mid-40s, hair pulled back in a loose knot, a few strands escaping to touch her jaw. She wasn't wearing makeup, just a soft gray sweater and jeans, but she carried herself like someone who'd stopped needing approval years ago. Her eyes, green, tired, flicked over me and softened for a moment. You didn't text first, she said. Not angry, just surprised. I figured you might not answer, I admitted. Your brother asked me to check in. Her mouth quirked into a small, private smile. Protect me, right? That's what he calls it. I felt heat creep up my neck. Something like that. She stepped back and opened the door wider. Well, come in before you catch a cold. I was just making tea. The house smelled faintly of lemon and old books. I followed her to the kitchen, trying not to stare. On the counter sat 2 mugs already set out. You were expecting company? I asked. Only out of habit, she said, pouring water into the mugs. It's been quiet lately. Too quiet. She pushed a mug toward me. My fingers brushed hers, nothing dramatic, just a slip of contact, but it jolted me more than the rain outside. She didn't pull away immediately either. Her hand lingered a beat too long before retreating. You don't have to do this, you know, she said, stirring her tea slowly. Playing watchdog. I'm fine. I made a promise, I said. Besides, I wanted to see you. That last part came out softer than I meant. She looked up then, really looked, eyes narrowing slightly, but not in suspicion. More like she was trying to read a language she used to know. You're kind, she murmured, almost to herself. Too kind for someone your age. I laughed awkwardly. And you're different than I expected. How so? I don't know, I said. Less like someone who needs protection. Something shifted in the air between us, subtle but unmistakable. She set her spoon down, the metal clinking against porcelain, and leaned back against the counter, arms crossed, but her posture wasn't closed off. Her thumb rubbed absently at her palm as if she were working up to something. What if I told you, she said slowly, that what I need isn't protection at all? Her voice was quiet, but it left no space for me to answer right away. The kitchen clock ticked. Outside, a car door slammed somewhere down the street. Before I could find the right words, her phone buzzed sharply on the counter, a single text lighting up the screen. She glanced at it, expression unreadable, then looked back at me. Do you still want to keep your promise? She asked. And for the first time that night, I wasn't sure what to say. The next morning I found myself walking back to her house without even planning it. The rain had been replaced by thin, bright sunlight that made everything look too honest. I told myself I'd forgotten to ask if she needed groceries, but I knew that wasn't why. Through the window I saw her sitting at the kitchen table with a notebook open, head bent, hair falling forward. She looked younger like that, almost my age, until she lifted her face and I caught the faint lines around her eyes, not unkind, just earned. She opened the door before I could knock. You're early, she said. I didn't have class this morning. I lied. Thought I'd check if you needed anything. She hesitated, then stepped aside. Coffee's fresh. Inside, the air smelled of cinnamon. On the counter, a small photograph lay face down. She noticed me looking and slid it back into the notebook. "Old picture?" I asked carefully. "My ex-husband," she said, almost casually. "We divorced 3 years ago. He liked taking photos more than living in them." She poured coffee without meeting my eyes. I wanted to ask more, but I remembered how my best friend had warned me, "She's been through enough. Don't complicate it." Still, I blurted, "He hurt you?" She froze, then gave a small, dismissive laugh. "Not in the way you think. Just, absence can be its own kind of harm." She pushed a mug toward me. Our hands touched again, light, accidental, but her fingers trembled before she withdrew. "What about you?" she asked. "Any girlfriends?" "Nothing serious," I said. "Nobody who makes me feel like—" I stopped, heat rising up my neck. "Like what?" "Like this," I said, softer than a whisper. Her eyes flickered, a storm I couldn't read. She wrapped both hands around her mug. "You're too young to mean that." "I'm old enough to know when I do," I answered before thinking. She inhaled sharply, then looked out the window. "You don't understand the math of it," she murmured. "I'm your friend's sister. I'm twice your age. People assume things. They judge." I didn't respond. The room felt smaller, warmer. The clock ticked loudly in the silence. Finally she said, "I used to play piano when I was your age. That was before everything got complicated." "I heard you last night," I said. "It sounded lonely." She smiled faintly, almost grateful, and turned toward the upright piano in the corner. "Sit," she said. "If you're going to haunt my kitchen, you might as well listen properly." I sat beside her on the piano bench. She pressed a key, soft, tentative, then another. Without thinking, I laid my hand on top of hers to steady it, just for a second. She didn't pull away this time. The notes hung between us, trembling. The next time I went over, the sky was already heavy with thunder. I'd meant to stay away for a few days, to let whatever was building between us cool down. Instead, my feet brought me back like a bad habit. She opened the door quickly, hair loose, sleeves pushed up, a faint streak of flour on her cheek. "You again," she said, but her voice carried a strange relief. "I was just in the neighborhood." "You live 20 minutes away," she said, stepping aside anyway. Inside smelled of baking bread. She wiped her hands on a towel, but her fingers kept trembling. "I'm expecting someone," she said. "So don't stay long." "Someone?" "Just a neighbor bringing over paperwork." I nodded, but my chest tightened. The piano bench still had the impression of where we'd sat the night before. I tried not to stare at it. She handed me a slice of bread. "You should eat before you go." Our fingers brushed again. This time neither of us moved away. Her eyes flicked up to mine, then down to my mouth. The space between us felt fragile, like a glass about to crack. "You shouldn't keep coming here," she whispered. "You don't want me here?" "That's not what I said." A car door slammed outside. She stepped back sharply, breathing faster. "That's my neighbor." "You have to." The doorbell rang. She shoved the bread into my hands. "Kitchen, now." I ducked into the kitchen as she opened the door. A man's voice drifted in, friendly but too loud. "Hey Clara, got those papers for you." Their small talk felt like a screen between us. I could see her from the kitchen doorway, her shoulders tense, smile too bright. She accepted the envelope, thanked him, closed the door. When she turned back, she leaned against the wood for a second, eyes closed. "I hate hiding like this," she murmured. "I'm not married, Clara," I said quietly. "Why are we hiding?" "Because I am my brother's sister," she said, looking at me hard. "Because he asked you to protect me, not—" She trailed off. The bread in my hands had gone cold. Not what? Her lips parted, but no words came. She stepped toward me instead. For a heartbeat we stood almost touching, her breath catching against mine, thunder rolling somewhere beyond the windows. I shouldn't, she whispered. Then don't, I whispered back. But she didn't move away either. Her hand rose halfway, then hovered near my face before falling back to her side. Another rumble of thunder shook the windowpane. She exhaled sharply, retreating a step. You should go. I nodded, but my feet stayed planted. Neither of us moved. The storm hadn't let up in days. Streets were slick, the trees outside her window bent low. I told myself I wouldn't come, but my phone already had her address pulled up before I'd even finished the thought. When she opened the door, she looked different, hair loose and damp, a blanket wrapped over one shoulder. Her eyes flicked past me, scanning the empty street. You shouldn't be here, she said, voice rougher than usual. You keep saying that, I said. But you keep letting me in. She closed the door, locked it. Because I don't know how to tell you not to. We stood in the hallway, the only sound the hiss of rain against the glass. I could see the piano bench behind her, the mugs on the counter, all the small anchors of this secret world we built. I saw you with him, I blurted. She frowned. With who? The neighbor. Yesterday. You were laughing. Her expression hardened. You're jealous? I'm confused, I said. I don't know what I am to you. I'm supposed to protect you, not. My voice cracked. Her hands tightened on the blanket. Not want me, she finished quietly. The silence after that was huge. The clock ticked. Somewhere in the house a floorboard creaked. I'm not proud of this, she said at last. I told myself it was just gratitude. Someone finally showing up when they said they would. Someone younger, untouched by all the things that broke me. But every time you walk through that door. She stopped, swallowing hard. I stopped believing my own rules. My throat felt dry. Then say it. Say you don't want me here. Her eyes closed. If I say it, you'll leave. I will, I said. Her eyes opened. Then I won't. The blanket slipped off her shoulder. She stepped closer, close enough that I could see the tiny scar at her temple, smelled the citrus of her shampoo. I promised him I'd protect you, I said, barely breathing. And I promised myself I'd never do this again, she whispered. Her hand rose, brushed my collarbone, stopped there. You're so young, she murmured. It should feel wrong. But it doesn't. I caught her wrist lightly, not to stop her, just to anchor us both. Then maybe it's real, I said. Thunder cracked directly overhead. The lights flickered. She stared at me, eyes wide, something breaking and remaking itself inside her. If we do this, she said, there's no pretending after. I opened my mouth to answer, but at that moment the front door handle rattled violently, someone trying it from the outside. Her eyes snapped toward the door. Oh God, she whispered. The door rattled again, harder this time. Clara's breath caught. She moved to the peephole, then stepped back like she'd been burned. It's him, she whispered. Who? My brother. My stomach dropped. He's back already? She nodded, panic flickering across her face. He wasn't supposed to be home for another week. We stood frozen in the hallway as the knocking began, sharp, insistent. Clara? It's me. Open up. She turned to me. You have to go. Out the back? I whispered. There's no time. Her brother's voice came again, closer to anger now. Clara, why is the door locked? She grabbed my arm. Stay here. Don't make a sound. She smoothed her sweater with trembling hands, then unlocked the door and opened it a crack. Hey, she said brightly. You're early. Yeah. His voice was suspicious. Who's here with you? No one. I heard his footsteps cross the threshold. Really? Because there's a car outside I don't recognize. I pressed myself against the kitchen wall, heart hammering. Clara's voice dropped to a low, warning tone. You're imagining things. Then he said the one thing I wasn't ready for. I asked you not to get involved with anyone while I was gone. Especially not him. My breath caught. He knew. Somehow he knew. You don't know what you're talking about, she snapped. Oh, I know exactly what I'm talking about. He's been texting me updates like a good little guard dog, but I'm not blind, Clara. Silence. Where is he? Clara stepped into the kitchen doorway, blocking his view. Stop. You don't get to police my life. Her brother's eyes flicked over her shoulder and landed on me. Unbelievable, he muttered. He pushed past her. I stood my ground, though my hands shook. I didn't. I started. You promised me, he said, his voice low and dangerous. You promised to protect her. I tried, I said. I wasn't lying about that. His jaw clenched. You don't even see what you're doing to her. Stop, Clara said sharply. This isn't your decision. He turned on her. He's a kid. I'm a man, I said quietly. The words hung there, heavy. Clara stepped between us, her hand on my chest like a barrier. Enough, she said. Her voice was shaking but steady. I won't be shamed for wanting something real. Not by you. Not anymore. Her brother stared at her, something cracking behind his eyes. Then he dropped the envelope he was carrying on the counter and walked out without another word, slamming the door behind him. Clara sagged against me, the room spinning with everything unsaid. It's done, she whispered, though neither of us believed it. The house was silent after her brother left. Rain tapped lightly against the windows, soft now, almost forgiving. Clara and I stood in the kitchen, close enough that I could feel the warmth of her body through the damp sweater she wore. I thought I'd have to make a choice for you, I said, voice low. Protect you. Stay distant. Keep it safe. You weren't distant, she said. Her eyes were wide, glimmering, reflecting the dim kitchen light. Not even once. I swallowed, realizing how true that was. I'd come back every time, even when it made no sense. Even when it was wrong. I shouldn't, she whispered, almost to herself, her fingers tracing the edge of the counter. It shouldn't happen. And yet, I stepped closer. My hand brushed hers. She didn't pull away, though her chest rose and fell faster. And yet? I prompted softly. Her lips parted, and for a moment words failed her. Then she said, And yet I want it. I want you. It hit me harder than I expected. Not because it was sudden, but because it was real. Unfiltered. She wanted me, not as a replacement, not as a fantasy, but fully aware of everything, the age, the risks, the judgments. I took her hand in both of mine. I want you too, I admitted. More than I should. More than I can explain. Her fingers tightened around mine. The air between us was thick with all the things either of us had said out loud: fear, longing, guilt, hope. It was messy, terrifying, human. Then what do we do? She asked, her voice breaking slightly. Whatever we choose, I said, letting my thumb trace circles on her wrist. We do it together. No pretending. No hiding. She looked at me, searching, trembling. Even if it's hard? Especially if it's hard, I said. A small laugh escaped her, soft and incredulous. I never thought anyone would look at me like that. Not really look. You've been looking at me just as much, I said. Every time you let me in, every time you didn't push me out. She exhaled, leaning into me. Our foreheads touched, noses brushing, breaths mingling. The world outside, the judgment, the rules, the rain, faded. Only this moment existed. I'm scared, she admitted. Me too, I said. But I'm done letting fear decide. Her hand found my cheek, and I leaned into her touch, closing the small distance between us. Everything balanced on a knife's edge, messy and fragile, but real. She whispered my name. I whispered hers back. And for the first time, there was no hesitation. The sound of the rain, the faint creak of the floor, the dim light in the kitchen, it all held us in that suspended space. Anything could happen next. But for now, we simply stood there, together, unafraid to feel. The rain had stopped completely by morning. Sunlight spilled across the hardwood floors, glinting off the piano keys where we'd spent hours the night before. Clara and I moved through the kitchen quietly, our hands brushing sometimes, smiles soft and private. Her brother had left early, grumbling something about unfinished errands, and we had the house to ourselves. No guilt, no judgment, just the weight of what we'd finally admitted to each other. Coffee? I asked, reaching for the kettle. She shook her head, leaning against the counter. I want to remember this without distraction. I nodded, setting my mug down. The quiet between us was comfortable now, not tense. She looked younger, more at ease, but the lines around her eyes carried all the stories I'd come to love. I never thought someone would stay, she said softly. Not really stay. Not knowing everything, not caring that it's complicated. I couldn't leave, I said. Even if I tried, I'd always find my way back. She smiled, a little teasing, a little shy. You're persistent. Maybe, I admitted, but only for the things that matter. Her fingers brushed mine again, this time intentional, slow. I held her hand, feeling the warmth, the pulse, the small tremor that told me she was just as human as I was, afraid, hopeful, alive. I don't want to hide anymore, she said, eyes bright. From my brother, from the world, or from myself. Then we don't have to, I whispered. She stepped closer, resting her head against my chest. I wrapped my arms around her, the rhythm of our breathing sinking. For the first time, I didn't think about age, judgment, or promises to anyone else. There was only this, the quiet certainty of being exactly where we were supposed to be. Hours passed like minutes. We talked about nothing and everything, laughed at small memories, shared confessions that had stayed buried too long. The house felt alive with the honesty we'd finally allowed ourselves. I guess we're together now, she said, a hint of wonder in her voice. I'd say that's the safest word for it, I replied, smiling. She tilted her head, studying me. Do you really think this will work? I don't know, I admitted. But I know I want to try. With you. All of you. Her lips curved into a soft, certain smile. Then that's enough for me. We stood like that a moment longer, quiet but present. Outside, the world continued, loud, messy, unpredictable. Inside, everything felt like it finally made sense. The story didn't end with fireworks or declarations. It ended with a promise, to be seen, to be chosen, to be human together. And that, somehow, was everything. Questions for the audience: did you enjoy the story? What kind of stories would you like to hear next?